This is Wheelock, chapter 13, Sententiae antiquae. Ipse ad eos contendebat, equitesque ante se misit. We've got two verbs here, and you can see this QUE joins it in reverse. Here's the closest thing we can come to a subject there. He himself hurried to them. Now, eos is not the same as him. And he sent, that's perfect tense there, the horseman before him. And this say, this is reflexive, and that means it reflects back to the subject of the verb there. Whereas eos does not. That's just the third person personal pronoun there. Let's try number 2 here. Ipse nihil per se sine eo facere potuerunt. Here's your verb. Here is your subject. That's nominative plural. Verbs plural. That checks out. They themselves could. That's right. They themselves could. So ipse, like this one, this is called the intensive pronoun. It just intensifies the subject. It's not reflexive. But this is reflexive. It's in this little prepositional phrase, per se, which is actually a phrase in English, per se. I don't like tomatoes per se, like on their own. They themselves, on their own, potuerunt, could, facere, do, nihil, nothing, sine eo, without him. Now, eo, that's the personal pronoun. Se is the reflexive. So if I could point, this would be pointing away somewhere, but the se would be pointing back to the subject of the main verb. Number 3, ipse signum suum et litera suas a principio recognovit. Verbs here, subjects here, and notice this. Signum suum, litera suas. This is the reflexive adjective being used twice. He himself, that's singular, a singular verb, recognized his own signature, I guess. It's actually the seal that you create on a letter with wax, and his own letter from the beginning. So he recognizes his letter and the wax seal over the letter. These are reflexive adjectives, so they're talking about the subject's wax seal and the subject's letters. Nobody else's. Quisque ipse se diligit, quod quisque per se sibi caris est. Some wonderful sounds in this sentence. We've got a verb here and a verb here. We've got a subject here. And it gets repeated here. You can see it's the same word, quisque. Quisque means each. Each person loves himself. Ooh, that's awkward. Each person himself loves himself. Now you see, Latin doesn't have a problem here. It's English that has the problem because our intensive pronoun, like ipse, is the same as our reflexive pronoun. So we are the ones who are confused and not the Romans, because each person is dear to themselves on their own. And so these are reflecting, these are the reflexive pronouns. They're reflecting back to the subject quisque. Right. Ex vitio alterius sapiens emendat suum. Okay. Prepositional phrase. Knock that right out. Okay, the verbs not at the end this time. This is nominative, so looks like a subject of some sort. And alterius, watch out. This is genitive, singular. It's one of those ius genitive pronouns. Hikaikak ileala lud. From the hatred of the other, a wise man fixes his own. Well, what does that mean? As is often the case, we finish translating the Latin, and even though you translate it correctly, you don't know what it means. Well, it's something like, if you're smart, a wise person fixes their own anger because of the anger or hatred of another person. So this suum should have witium after it, but they don't want to repeat that, so they assume that that's a technique called ellipsis. This one's a short one. Recede in te ipsum. Ooh, what is this form? This is imperative. This is our big V, the verb. There's a command in the singular. Withdraw in te. Now this could be, let's see, te could be ablative, right? But it could be accusative. How do we figure it out? Well, look at this. This has got to be accusative. And I can't fit it in anywhere else. So I'm going to say this modifies this. You yourself. If that's the case, then te has also got to be accusative. So in plus the accusative is into, whereas in plus the ablative is in or on. So this says retreat into yourself. Yourself. Well, there's no way to say that in English. You really just want to say retreat into yourself. Animus se ipse alet. Okay, now this looks nominative. I'm going to call that the subject. Alet comes from a verb. Alo, alera, to nourish, to feed. Verb. Say. It could be ablative, could be accusative. I'm going to call it the do, direct object. I'm going to say it's accusative. Ipse, well that's nominative, so that has to agree with that nominative. The soul itself feeds itself. This meaning this, right? Because it's reflexive. Homo doctus in se semper divitias habet. Habet. Clearly the verb there. Third person singular present active indicative. So we're looking for a singular subject. Homo. Yep. Homo hominis, masculine man. And you can tell it's nominative from this, because that means learned, and you can see that with the US, nominative masculine singular. In se, prepositional phrase, semper, always, divitias, with as ending, accusative, that's your direct object. A learned man has riches always in himself. Again, we've translated it. What the heck does it mean? It means a learned man has the wealth of his learning in his head all the time. Well, that's a nice way to think about it.